What's for dinner tonight?
A calzone.
Calzone being delivered from pizza joint, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Not like an Italian restaurant?
Yes, from a pizza place.
Okay. Why'd you go calzone?
Are pizza places not Italian restaurants?
Are pizza restaurants Italian restaurants? Not automatically. Like, is Pizza Hut an Italian restaurant?
If it only sells pizza.
I don't think so. It's like the hot dog and sandwich.
Like, I don't care. That is just like a random, like, one of those I'm 14 and this is deep questions that occurred to me while we were saying it.
It's like a hot dog might be a sandwich, but if you tell me you're bringing me a sandwich, you bring me a hot dog, I'm gonna be mad. If you say like, hey, let's go out to an Italian restaurant and we go to Pizza Hut, I'm gonna be mad.
I need to throw that gag into a movie or something because I make so many movies, you know.
Yeah,
that's like that. There was an SNL skit where The Rock played an evil scientist. I'm sure I may have mentioned this to you before. It's an evil scientist contest. So the first guy's like, and I have my freeze ray. And another person's like, and I have my shrink ray. And then The Rock goes up there, and it's one of his best actual performances, I think, because he gets up there and he's like, cool, excellent. Thanks, guys. And for the evil scientist contest, I invented a robot that molests children. And everyone's like, what? And he's like, and so they keep going like, that's horrible. And he's like, is that not the idea? Like, he's confused that they're so outraged because he thinks the point is to be so evil.
Actually.
And they're like, and he's like, and the guy's like, oh my God. And he keeps pointing to him. I think it's Kyle Mooney. He goes like, oh my God. And he's like, see this guy in the front row, he gets it. And he's like, no, I don't. Stop it. Like, but, and so and they're like, how do you even do that? And he's like, well, you abuse the robot and then you hope the cycle continues. Like, he has all these nonsensical things that he says. And it's genuinely something that I'm like, I could never imagine The Rock doing a skit like that now, but it was definitely after he was famous. But,
right.
But it ends with him being like, guys, I think we all need to calm down and we need to adjourn across the street to the medieval themed sandwich restaurant that is available there, and we can all relax and talk about this. And he's like, it's a White Castle. Who calls White Castle a sandwich restaurant? I'll have to send it to you, but it's very, very funny.
No, a pizza joint's not an Italian restaurant. Theme song.
Did we really start with that?
Yep.
That's
talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. And the best parts, we have the best of the rest.
Hello, and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by my overworked co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Well, hello.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Clone Month, and this week we are talking the 1996 film Multiplicity. Andrew, what is your history with this movie? Have you seen it before this week, Andrew?
Yeah. I've watched this movie. I watch this movie all the time, man. I don't know that I saw it in theaters. This would have been July 96. I don't know that my parents were taking me to Multiplicity at the theater in the summer of 96. But this was something that was on TV. We might have had it taped off TV. We might have had a copy of it. I don't know.
In the Williams Vault.
The minute I started the Williams Vault. It's been a staple ever since I saw it for like the first time. Like my parents love this movie. Everybody loves this movie. There's nothing not to like about this movie. Michael Keaton is, as we've established many times, the greatest actor of all time.
Yes.
But and you get 4 of him. And we've been literally I've literally been looking for excuses to talk about this movie on this podcast for like years, literally. And I finally faked my way into it by coming up with this idea of doing Clone Month. But it's been a staple of my life ever since I started buying movies. I've had various physical copies of this movie. I'm waiting for the 4K. Do it soon, whoever you are that owns this, Sony maybe. But yeah, I love this movie. I watch it all the time. It's literally, I can put this on anytime, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, we've mentioned this movie on the podcast over the years a number of times. I know we are both big fans of it. I would guess you've probably seen it more times than I have. It seems to be in your steady rotation of comfort movies, but I've seen it a ton, definitely growing up. I really doubt I saw it in theaters, but I remember watching it at home with my dad a lot, and I don't know if we ever owned it, but just watching it like on cable TV, maybe we had a VHS, but we watched it a number of times. We absolutely loved number 4 and calling each other Steve as a reference to this movie. And boy, I can't wait to talk about 3 and 4. I love this movie. I've always loved it. I've always loved Michael Keaton. And what's really funny, I mean, we can get into this more, I guess, when we start talking about the cast of this movie, but like for people of our age growing up, this is like the action star that played Batman doing a silly comedy. But for people that grew up, were conscious throughout the 80s and watched 80s movies, this is like Michael Keaton returning to what he's most known for, which is a comedic actor in silly mid-budget films. And I'm honestly, we've been trying to figure out a way to get this on the podcast, but I always thought we would be kind of cheating by getting it on the show because this is like a comedy classic from the 90s. That's the status it's always held in my brain. Not the case. We're going to go through the numbers. This more than, quote unquote, qualifies for our show. Let's check it out. The movie is released July 17th, 1996. Summer release, right? A very hot window. It's made on a budget of $45 million, which for a simple comedy is actually a pretty decent budget, especially in 1996. But Andrew, at the box office, worldwide, it only brings in $37 million. That's a flop, folks. Critically, doesn't get great reviews, holds a 45% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, certainly has its defenders, but no one was really singing the praises at the time, and people did not show up at the box office.
They certainly did not, Chris. I was just taking a look at the opening weekend to see what the competition was. And it's weird to see these things in mention with each other because it's just, you assume your brain splits them apart for some reason. So, Multiplicity opens at number 7 its opening weekend, bringing in just over $5 million. It is just ahead of another first week release, Kazam.
Wow.
Not Shazam, folks. There is no genie movie starring Sinbad called Shazam. You're not from another universe. There's been no collapsing of timelines. Your childhood memory is just not super reliable. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it's the truth. Just ahead of Multiplicity, bringing in $5.4 million, is a movie called Fled that I don't know if I've ever even heard of. It sounds like this is Lawrence Fishburne and Stephen Baldwin, who are two prisoners that are chained together who flee during an escaped attempt gone bad. Never heard of it.
Sure. Okay.
Number 5 is The Frighteners.
Great movie.
A great movie. It's funny because those are the 4 big new releases, and they all come in at just like between $5 and $5.5 million. And that's numbers 5 to 8 for the opening weekend, which means the top 4 on this weekend were all holdovers. So at number 4, we have The Nutty Professor in its 4th week of release, bringing in $7.5 million. At number 3, we have Courage Under Fire, bringing in $8 million in its 2nd week of release.
Clint Eastwood movie?
You're thinking of In the Line of Fire. Courage Under Fire is Denzel Washington and I don't remember who else it was.
Okay.
But number 2, Phenomenon, starring John Travolta,
Hey.
in its third week of release, bringing in $8.1 million. And then number 1, in its third week of release, Independence Day.
Andrew, it took you way too long to say the title of that movie. Is there a briefer way you could tell me what's number 1 at the box office?
I don't know, Chris. That seems like a big ask, but if I were to guess, what you could do for something like that, I don't know. Like, you look at like Independence Day, like, maybe something like ID4. Nice and brief. Does that work for you?
That's what we all called it in the 90s. Yeah, that's what everyone referred to that movie as ID4.
I don't know why. Guys, we're dumb. Humanity's stupid. Anyway, just to show that, I guess, one, movies had legs back then. Things got a chance to actually succeed. But that none of the new releases the weekend that this came out did very particularly well. And then, yeah, Multiplicity, I mean, you're looking at a second weekend of 3.5 million and a third weekend of 1.9 million. And that's kind of it. Makes 21 million domestically, and pretty much all of that comes in that first month. Now, this movie has certainly been profitable by this point, just due to the fact that, home video releases, syndication, things like that. But plenty of options. And this is definitely like made money now. But yeah, I didn't realize you didn't know that. Like, I could have definitely told you that like this movie was not cheating to put on here. Like, I knew that the reception and the box office were bad.
It's a perfect comedy starring Michael Keaton. Why would it ever be poorly received? Although you
you say that. Let's talk about the Rotten Tomatoes here in a second. So.
Rotten Tomatoes. We normally don't look at their little one-line summary, which is like the only place Rotten Tomatoes does any editorializing.
This one is so full of it, its eyes are brown. This is ridiculous.
I hate it so much.
So much.
The critics' consensus says this high-concept experiment only proves that a comedy actually can have too much Michael Keaton. No.
Chris,
no.
Have you seen?
There's no such thing as too much
Crashers?
Michael Keaton in my movie. Yeah, we've talked about this. I saw it too late in life to actually enjoy it.
Right, but I understand that completely. It's aged flawlessly. There's definitely nothing problematic about it now. But there's a part in that movie that literally just came to my mind. There's a part in that movie where Vince Vaughn screams erroneous, like erroneous on all counts, like. And that's literally just what was in my head the minute you read that line out and finished it. I just wanted to scream erroneous, because what a nonsense statement. Like, what an absolutely ridiculous
It's
statement.
just someone there that thought they had something clever to say, because it's not a true summary of the it got poor reviews, yes, but no one is saying like Michael Keaton wasn't hilarious or it's bad because Michael Keaton made too many jokes. There's not too much Michael Keaton in this movie. Like, if it doesn't work for you, fine, but people aren't actually complaining about too much Michael Keaton, but they saw an opportunity for a joke and they took it, and I don't appreciate it, and they're wrong. #PP.
Anyway, what shocked me about the Rotten Tomatoes score, so to clarify here, the critics score on Rotten Tomatoes is 46%. So almost 50-50, to be fair. Like, to be fair to half the critics that liked it, good on you. You are correct. What shocks me is the audience score. This is what I was not prepared for. This is another I don't know. I feel like this has happened a lot where, like, I just assume the audience score is going to be higher because I assume everybody thinks the same way that I do. But the audience score on this is only slightly higher at 49%.
Erroneous.
Which means that, exactly, which means that people, erroneous on both counts. There we go. But it's amazing to me that, like, people log on to Rotten Tomatoes to give Multiplicity a bad review.
Especially a movie released well before Rotten Tomatoes existed. So, like, a movie comes out now, it might get flooded with bad reviews. Like, it makes sense for people to immediately log on and post their opinion. But
Right.
the fact that this movie wasn't in the news cycle for any reason, but people just thought, I should go leave my thoughts on that 10, 15-year-old Michael Keaton movie and make sure people know how much I don't like it. I don't understand what these people are doing. So we got to get this fixed. Everybody get on it. Go write a positive review for Multiplicity.
Yeah, we got to get it to at least 50%, guys. We got to firmly put this into mixed categories.
Put hashtag PP in your review.
Yes, hashtag PP. So you know.
Let's take a look at the creative team behind this movie. We have 4 credited writers. First off, we have the writing duo of Chris Miller and Mary Hale. Now, this movie is based on a short story that initially appeared in the National Lampoon magazine. That story was written by Chris Miller, who gets first crack at expanding it into a feature-length film. He has some screenwriting credits, most famously on Animal House, which, of course, is the very successful National Lampoon movie that really puts that brand on the map.
Yeah, and that, oddly enough, Animal House is co-written by Harold Ramis and Doug Kenny. Doug Kenny, by most indications and people that knew him, kind of a very underrated comedic talent whose life ended far too soon.
And I get to say, everyone should go watch A Futile and Stupid Gesture on Netflix, starring Will Forte as Doug Kenny. It's a fantastic David Wayne film that has gone under the radar and a great examination of that man's life and talent.
I know Chevy Chase has his issues, but he speaks very highly of Doug Kenny. Was doing his best to try to make sure that he was taken care of, and he took a lot of guilt over Doug's death. And when they found out they were making that movie, and Joel McHale called him to say, "Hey, I'm playing you in this movie," Chevy didn't really have any issues and was actually just very glad that that story was being told. So the slightest of credits to Chevy Chase there.
And yes, by the way, excellent selling point. You get to see Joel McHale play Chevy Chase, which there's so many layers to why that's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of meta jokes to Joel McHale playing Chevy Chase. But anyway, looking at Chris Hale's filmography, Chris Miller, sorry, not Chris Hale. His wife is Mary Hale. You can see that, like you said, now Animal House is definitely probably his most notable thing. He actually has a role in that movie as well. He plays Hardbar. He also is a writer on the television follow-up Delta House that people forget exists. That was a thing they used to do a lot. They would take a movie and then make a television show out of it, and it would disappear so quickly that people kind of forgot that it existed. Like Bill and Ted had a live-action television show that didn't star Keanu Reeves or Alex Winter.
Fast Times at
Very
Ridgemont
strange
High
shows.
had one. Ferris Bueller had one.
Anyway, he continues working, does another movie with Harold Ramis called Club Paradise, which is a comedy film from the mid-'80s, directed by Harold Ramis, starring Robin Williams, Twiggy, Peter O'Toole. Very wild group. Also has writing credits on a variety of different things. Multiplicity reteams him with Ramis. Obviously, they went back a really long way. And then, like I said, Mary Hale is his wife. And so, yeah, they take the first pass at turning his short story into this film.
And then the writing duo of Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel take a crack at punching it up. Their first screen credit is for the movie Night Shift, starring none other
Which is so funny.
than
Folks,
Michael Keaton.
If you have not watched Night Shift, you really need to watch it, because it's Henry Winkler essentially as the straight man with Michael Keaton. Like if you want to see where all of Michael Keaton's comedic stuff like spills out of, watch Night Shift. Like, you're going to see Beetlejuice when you watch Night Shift. You're going to see every like comedic thing he's done has its origins in Night Shift, basically. Like, it's like the Rosetta Stone. Not that Michael Keaton is hard to understand necessarily, but
Sure.
but Night Shift is like, you're going to be like, oh, all of it comes from here, basically. It's so funny. And I don't think enough people have seen it, but Night Shift is so funny. And I was overjoyed to see that it was the Night Shift guys who were the second group of writers to take on this movie, because to me it explains a lot. because they know what his sensibilities are, because they worked with Michael Keaton on Night Shift. They know what he's capable of. And so they were able to lean into that and know what they had with Michael Keaton. And I think that is a huge part of why I think the movie is so successful.
They also pick up an Academy Award nomination for their work on Splash. They are writers on A League of Their Own and alums of the show because they also wrote Ed TV, which we have previously covered. It was probably on that episode where you also talked about Night Shift and highly recommended it. And yeah. I think I bought it since then, but I still haven't watched it. So I've definitely got to get that in the queue.
Yeah, it is also they've got, and I'm sure we talked about it on that episode, but they've got City Slickers and City Slickers 2 buried in here. They've got Spies Like Us, speaking of Chevy Chase. That's a pretty funny one with him and Dan Aykroyd. Chevy Chase, I'm not going to speak too much about him, but it really is a shame that he's so problematic at times, because there was a time that man was so funny. Like, truly. Like, people now kind of just view Chevy Chase in this particular light, and I can't say it's, not deservedly so. But it's swung so far that way that people do forget that there was a time that man was in demand and very, very funny. And now he's mostly just kind of obscure now. Nobody really thinks about Chevy Chase anymore, except when Christmas comes around. But it's kind of wild to think that there was a time that he was genuinely, like, in demand, super popular. And the reason he was popular is because he was funny. Like, it's not like he didn't, I'm not saying, deserve is a weird word, but, like, there's a reason he got the attention he did. But anyway, he had to go and do all that other stuff that he did. So
yeah, like, he's not the other guy in Three Amigos. Like, he's
at
the time, like, just three comedy giants coming together to make a movie.
Right, and, like, he was the star of plenty of movies because he was capable of doing that at a time. But anyway, we're here to talk about a still genuine comedic giant. But just a very interesting. But either way, 2 sets of writing teams. I guess, like you said, pretty standard these days. But it does look problematic because there are 4 writers listed, but not as bad as it seems.
And the movie is, of course, directed by Harold Ramis, a talent that we've been able to talk about a number of times on this podcast, whether we were covering a work of his, or sometimes we just like to shout out Harold Ramis because he has a great body of work. But Ghostbusters 2, we covered that. So it's probably the most notable time we got to discuss him. And I believe picked up a Mark Strong Award for his work there. No way to check. As far as directing efforts, is this the first time we've been able to talk about him as a director?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I talked about it on Ghostbusters 2, and he did pick up a Mark Strong on Ghostbusters 2. I remember that you gave it to him, because nice. I did not. I gave it to Peter McNichol, but I remember very clearly who I gave it to, because yes. I've been saying that. I've been basically saying for years that Peter McNichol is one of the best parts of that movie. So I'm sure I spoke and gushed over Harold Ramis at the time. But the first time we're talking about him as a director, we did pass on doing Stuart Saves His Family and SNL month. Otherwise, we would have touched on it there. But obviously, what people do forget, and I think I pointed this out on Ghostbusters, is that he was a successful director before Ghostbusters. He had directed Caddyshack and The First Vacation, speaking of Chevy Chase. Again, how he keeps coming up. Turns out all these lines are just linked together, apparently, with these guys. But, Caddyshack and National Lampoon's Vacations obviously being grounded isn't the right word, but very kind of level, just straightforward comedies. And Ghostbusters was definitely a little more high concept. But then once we get into the 90s, he kind of switches largely to just directing. His acting roles kind of wane a little bit, or if he is in something, it's just a bit part, like a cameo. But even when he was kind of at his height acting, he really only has like a few things where he's like what I would call like a star. Like, and it's kind of Stripes, Ghostbusters, and that's kind of it as far as like having sizable roles. Like, I was really dialing into this, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but like almost everything else he does like is like a pretty small performance. And it's just interesting to think about it that way, because he really was more of a creative type. And, when you look at like what he was also, obviously a big writer. He wrote Animal House. He wrote movies like Meatballs. He was a writer on Stripes, obviously Ghostbusters, writer on Back to School, Armed and Dangerous. So like he loved working with that group of people, the Eugene Levy's, the John Candys, all the National Lampoon's people, brought in the SNL people a lot too. But his career is just very interesting because obviously Ghostbusters is one of the greatest comedies of all time, and he's got this notoriety because of it. But he doesn't act that much outside of that. Stripes, obviously, he's one of the main characters of Bill Murray. And then Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, but
there's
those,
plenty of people out there that
lot.
think of him as that guy from Ghostbusters, not realizing
Right.
the immense influence he's had in other ways. I'm seeing here that he directed Bedazzled, which was what I think of as the movie that kind of ends Brendan Fraser's hot streak. I don't what came out first, that or Dudley Do Right. So it's kind of the 1-2 punch of those that kind of ends his great 90s run. But if we do ever get around to doing that Brendan Fraser month that we've discussed a number of times, maybe we'll get to talk about Harold Ramis directing once more.
Obviously, shout out Harold Ramis's cameo in Airheads, which was pretty recent. He plays the cop who gets outed because he says Lemmy would beat God in a fight and picks Sammy Hagar in the feud with Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth. Gives himself up completely. But yeah, I love Harold Ramis. There's not much more to say about it. I gush over him every time we get a chance. It's a shame that he's no longer with us. It's a shame that he didn't quite get to year one might not have been the high note that he wanted to go out on, but you haven't seen The Ice Harvest, which I'm pretty sure I said exactly this on Ghostbusters 2. If you have not seen The Ice Harvest, it is a black comedy film that he
the John
directed.
Cusack movie?
Yeah, in 2005, I think. But it's got John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton as hitmen, basically. Or not hitmen necessarily, but they steal a bunch of money and they're on the run, but it's very, very funny. John Cusack, Billy Bob Thornton, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Platt. And it's just very funny. It's just very, very good. And it's a Christmas movie. So don't watch it with your kids, but you can watch it at Christmas. But just, it was one of those things where that came out and it kind of went under the radar. Didn't really get much attention, but it should have. And if it's kind of that thing that happens in like the mid 2000s where like Harold Ramis did that and you were kind of like, oh yeah, there he is. Like, you got it. You still got it, man. You never lost it, but there it is.
Well, Andrew, it's time that we jump into this film. Talk about everything we like, all the positives, all the laughs to be had in Multiplicity. Andrew, you ready to do this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Doug lives a hectic life, struggling to keep up with the demands of his construction contracts and home life with his wife and 2 children. When he is offered the unorthodox solution of cloning himself to divide his life workload, he jumps at the opportunity. But when he still struggles to keep his affairs in order, he clones himself yet again. As his clones begin to get harder to keep a secret, and a 4th Doug unexpectedly appears, it becomes clear that life has become even more complicated than when there was just one of him. Who could have seen that coming, Andrew? This movie is so wacky. Like, it's about a man cloning himself. It's done so nonchalantly. Like, we'll talk about it when we get to, like, the scenes. But the movie is like, hey, can you accept that, like, this technology exists and this guy can just do that? Okay, great. Let's have some fun. Like, that's the setup of this movie in the most pre-9/11, mid-budget 90s comedy kind of way. And it's why I love it so, so much.
It's just so funny. And it's a weird thing because you could argue, like I said, this is a science fiction movie. Like,
sure, yeah.
It's an inherently science fiction concept. It's a science fiction comedy. And it's just one of those things that because you've grounded that science fiction around just a general, family struggle, dramatic, almost romance at times, it gets lost that there's this huge science fiction aspect to it. As Wikipedia says, 1996 American science fiction comedy film. But yeah, it's, like you said, you talk about they don't make them like this anymore. They don't. We've talked about, the death of the mid-budget film a lot. It's one of those things that just kind of really is. It sucks. You hear about this, what was it that I just heard about? The Electric State. I don't know if you heard anything about this.
That's the guys that did Endgame, their Netflix movie that
they did a Netflix movie, but it cost $320 million.
Insane, dude.
Which
Crazy.
Is insane. Truly, honestly. And what's more shocking is that then you watch it and you're like, where?
Oh, yeah, why?
Where was it? Where was this money? Because it's one of those things that it costs $320 million and you're just like, how in God's name did this cost so much? And now they're back to do. It's literally the Avengers Endgame team. It's the Russos and a screenplay by Marcus and McFeely, and it's this also. And then there's probably a Netflix month that we've got brewing here too that we could potentially do where we just talk about Netflix movies that failed to live up to expectations. But it's got and this movie has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. A $320 million movie that just it's going to disappear from the public consciousness. No one's going to remember this. And it's insane to me that for $320 million, you could have funded 10 $30 million movies that maybe they don't have the appeal or the scope or whatever, but you're at least spreading it around versus whatever that was. But this one's $45 million, which is a little bit more, setting that bar up a little bit higher. But when you got to pay Michael Keaton 4 times, that money's got to come from somewhere. So,
yeah, Netflix movies. Speaking of not staying in the public consciousness, I remember when we were around the time we were maybe starting this podcast or still doing comic book movies. I was thinking of doing superhero movies that aren't based on a comic, and I remember thinking oh, maybe we could do Thunder Force. That's coming out. No one remembers this movie exists. Right? Thunder Force on Netflix of Melissa McCarthy. I did a quick Google to see if I could find a budget on that to see how much they spent on that to disappear. I didn't get any results, but we've talked about it a lot. And the business of movies today is a weird thing. It's a weird thing, Andrew.
It's the changing industry. It's the changing everything. Obviously, the movie star is dead. It's whatever. But yeah, it's very strange that, but maybe the Multiplicity Legacy sequel is coming.
Yeah, starring Paul Rudd, and it is also on Netflix, Andrew, but I don't think anybody watched that one either. Well, Andrew, we're going to talk about all the scenes and gags of this movie, but first, of course, we have to talk about this cast, and we're going to start with the high point, best casting, best performance of the movie.
Folks, it's Michael Keaton. There's no point in even having this discussion. Mark Strong of Multiplicity is Michael Keaton. If you say anything else, you're lying. You are just lying and being that guy. It is Michael Keaton, through and through. He gets to flex so many different muscles in this movie. He gets to play up different aspects of the characters. He gets to be just slapsticky and comedic. He gets to be ridiculous. He gets to be serious. He gets to be everything. He gets to be sardonic. He gets to be sarcastic. He gets to be dry. He gets to be everything. This, as an actor, something like this had to just be a blast.
Yes.
I've never really watched Michael Keaton do any interviews about this. I've never really looked, to be fair. But, this just had to be a blast to do, top to bottom. Getting to play all these different versions of the same guy, doing all these different things, and it's just a delight to watch. And it's part of why I think the movie is so memorable, is because you are getting to watch Michael Keaton do so many different things. You've got the sequence where he's trying to be before 3 shows up, and he's trying to be the house husband, and he can't do it, and it just flashes right back to Mr. Mom, where he's doing the same sort of thing and failing miserably at it. You've got all these different shades of things that he can throw back to. You've got all these different things that are just so funny, and it's just wonderful. It's just a great, great, great performance. Performances. These obviously are. That's the other thing too, is it's 4 distinct characters.
Yes,
and they all act in a very particular way. Now, obviously, one of them is much more notable and identifiable for
a little broad.
That we will talk about.
Yeah.
But otherwise, who 3 is just by looking at him. You can kind of guess who 2 is just by looking at him. and by that default, that means you can usually identify who one is. And and to be able to do that on top of it, to not just be all these different characters, but to make sure that while they're all played by you, they're all distinctly different, is no small task. So the fact that he's able to do it and succeed in spades just speaks more to the man's talent. So,
and let's
just
not forget,
folks,
like,
we've been on the Keaton train forever. It didn't take like the founder and the critical acclaim from Spotlight and stuff like that. I've been here since day one. Well, whatever day 1987 is considered when I was born. That's when I joined the Michael Keaton train.
And let's not forget, distinct characters, but also acting against himself in 1996, like in the technology they had at the time, doing multiple passes, multiple takes as different versions of yourself, having conversations with yourself, making sure it all comes out naturally after all the effects are done, which you cannot see in real time on set. It's a Herculean task at the time, one that he was more than up for. And yeah, 4 distinct characters. I mean, we can talk about it. Number 1 is Michael Keaton, the family man, right? Which Michael Keaton is so good at being an everyman. Like, I believe this man is a construction worker. Even though he is a millionaire Hollywood A-list actor at the time, he pulls off blue collar perfectly still. He still has that believability, like in a way that I won't name other actors, but a way a lot of actors could not believably. I will name one. Tom Cruise in World of Worlds. I don't believe he's a construction worker. I like that movie. I enjoy Tom Cruise's performances. That aspect is hard to believe, but yeah, I totally buy it from Michael Keaton in 1996. He's so good at being family man, like alum of the show, we should say. We talked about him on Jack Frost. Had to picked up a Mark Strong award there. Of course, I can't verify it, but I gotta imagine he's a previous Mark Strong award winner. We've talked about him in Batman, obviously, numerous times, so the man has to be flush with Mark Strong awards. But number 1, Doug Kenny Prime, which we should say Doug Kenny, named after National Lampoon founder that we discussed earlier. Nice little nod. He is such a great everyman and such a great family man. Like, his chemistry with Andy McDowell, who I love in this movie, we're going to talk about in a moment, is so believable and so genuine. His interactions with his kids, I'm reminded a lot of Jack Frost. Like, I just instantly buy him and this family. I'm like, I want this to be my dad. Like, I mean, I have a dad and I love him. He's great, but I can't help but watch and be like, yeah, I'll take Michael Keaton too. Like, he's so effortlessly good at this. And I hate to say effortlessly because I'm sure he's putting in a lot of work, but it makes it look effortless to just be charming and genuine and have chemistry with other people and with himself. I love his interactions with 2, which 2 is Beetlejuice, right? But like in human form.
Yeah.
Like, especially the way he talks.
I've never really thought about it that way, but yeah, that's basically true. He's basically Beetlejuice, like, I don't want to say the Beetlejuice line that I love the most out loud because you'll have to censor it. But just like, I'm waiting for him to say that to somebody after he kicks over a tree.
A little gruff, a little angry, a little misogynistic. Yeah. Like, that's 2. 2, like, has no problem throwing himself into the work. He wants nothing to do with, like, house chores. His only real interest in the wife is one specific thing. We'll get to that when we get to scenes. But that's 2. And then 3, I guess now's the time we break down the personalities, right, Andrew?
Yeah, sure.
3 is, I've got to imagine some direction at the time is to be more like effeminate, in touch with your feminine side, in touch with your feelings. He's always talking about feelings. He's the peacekeeper amongst all the Dougs. And you could read this as being gay-coded, even though, like, I had that in mind watching it this viewing. I don't think there's a single gay joke.
No.
Did you? No, right?
No.
Like, you're not crazy for thinking it. I'm not saying there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But there's no, like, homophobic jokes. He doesn't come on to, like, any males. He has sex with a woman and likes it. If it was a gay character, I guess it would be weird. I guess that
seeks it out.
Like, where would that come from?
There's that scene where they're having the party with him and the 2 girls from the convenience store. He, like, bites his sweater at one point. And he's like, it's like, yeah, he's into it. Like, this dude's here. He's all about it. But clearly, the homemaker is kind of the goal of 3, though. Like, that's the intention. Like, He's great at cooking. He knows how to store food properly. He literally talks about how to wrap food in foil properly, which is definitely not a method that's stuck in my
But
brain ever
he's
since.
he's into fashion. He wears sweaters. He fixes up Andy McDowell's
he's very
hair.
nicely cleaned up. Like, he's very presentable. He's very coiffed.
I see the clones more as zeroing in on a specific part of Doug's personality and blowing it out to 10. So I don't see it. It could have very easily been, especially in the 90s, a cheap way to get a certain kind of joke in this movie, and it doesn't do that. Maybe it's not 100% problematic free, but it's I don't really see anything to scoff at here. But in my head, I was kind of imagining someone watching this in 2025, having never heard of it, seen it before, and they get to number 3, and they know they're watching a 90s comedy. They might be like, ooh, where are they going with this? I'm a little uncomfortable. And then 4 walks into the movie, and it's like, oh okay, yeah, we're in the 90s,
so,
okay.
4 is... So, I definitely 2 plays on, like, the masculine side, but, like, the workaholic. That's kind of what he goes for. 3 is obviously meant to be much more, you could say effeminate, you could say homemaker, you could say sensitive, whichever word you want. 4 is...
He's a clone of a clone. He's a clone of 2 rather than Doug Prime. And their explanation...
supposedly, yeah.
In the movie is he's a copy of a copy. You know, we make a copy of a copy. Sometimes it comes out a little... and I think they use the word special, which is about as close as they get to saying mentally challenged, which seems to be the inspiration for this character. Is that fair to say,
May not be
Andrew?
as sharp as the original, I think is how they describe it.
Sure.
I don't remember. But yes, the implication is that he is mentally regressed. He is much more childlike. That's probably maybe the more tactful way of putting it.
Okay.
He's here's the thing I'll say about this. And I'm not using this as an excuse. I have a friend who has spina bifida, and he's described multiplicity before. Obviously, he's in a wheelchair. He speaks very heavily about disability issues in America, of which there are an immense amount of. There are, people talk about the way we treat certain groups in this country. We treat the disabled almost immensely worse. Especially current actions meant to undermine the ADA. But he can't help but just find 4 so funny. He's spoken about how just like. But also, it's similar to 3 in that, like, 3 would have been very easy to take that route of, like, the 90s gay panic type stuff.
Yeah.
No one is mean to 4 because of the way he is.
I love that about this movie. They are
not mean to him. They do not insult him. They obviously make comments at his expense when he's hammering his boots to boards and acting like he's skiing. But, like, he's clearly meant to be mentally challenged, however you want to describe it. But the movie is very, very careful in how that character is treated by the rest of the characters in the film. And that is actually, I think, where the movie, I don't know if succeeds is the right word here, but it goes, I don't know if you could say it goes to great lengths, but like, he is never insulted for being the way that he is. He is never made fun of. I don't think they dropped the R word once.
They do not. I was definitely on high alert. I was kind of curious if that happened, which was commonplace at the time. Like, we've covered Godzilla.
It would not have been out of place to say it. Like, it would not have been out of place to say it at all.
We covered Godzilla, which comes out, 2 years after this? And they casually dropped that word for a laugh in that movie. Like, not even talking about an actual mentally challenged character. Like, they use it as a casual insult there. So,
which again happened at the time. People said that all the time. I've literally been watching Venture Brothers, and they say that word kind of a lot in those early seasons. It's kind of a little troubling, but that is the thing that I will point to. Like, obviously, I don't know that you would take that route today. Obviously, if you were making a movie with a similar concept, but the way the character is treated is way nicer than I would have expected a 90s comedy to treat a character like that. Where it would have been very easy to make a bunch of disabled jokes. It would have been very easy to make him a punchline. It would have been very easy to call him nasty things.
He's not even
because
like
none
a
of that
burden.
was
Like they're not annoyed by him. They're not trying to get rid of him.
He eats
Like,
all the
he's just-
food. That's what he does. Like he eats all the food. That's like the one thing that 2 gets frustrated at him for, is that he eats all the food, which anybody would be frustrated at. But so yeah, I'm not going to say that it's perfect. I'm not going to say by any means that if you are offended by this portrayal that you shouldn't be. I think the movie actually goes to pretty decent lengths to not treat that character as badly, and not badly at all. I don't think the character's treated badly by anybody in this movie at all.
I agree.
I think he's treated pretty well, and that is nice to see. That would be nice to see now. It's still now even something that's still, not great, but especially at the time. Obviously, you have Michael Keaton playing a character. There's things to be critical of that I'm certainly not going to fault anybody for being critical of, but overall, there's a lot of respect. Feels like another wrong word to use, but they don't make the character nearly the butt of the joke as much as would have been very commonplace at the time. Like, it would not have been uncommon to do that, and they don't do that. And I think that's commendable.
You can't be a 96. Yeah. I think we covered our bases here.
Yeah.
A lot. We're going to talk plenty more Keaton as we go through the scenes, but going through the rest of this cast, gotta shout out Andie MacDowell, who I love Andie MacDowell. She's like a staple of just 90s for me, even though like I'm not a big Groundhog Day guy, but like I've seen her in so many L'Oreal commercials over the years. That's probably the first thing I think of when I see her. But I didn't know too much about her until I was reading up for this episode. Not surprised to see her career starts as a fashion model, because what a gorgeous looking woman. I'll watch some like recent interviews with her and just kind of see what she was up to, because I haven't seen a lot of her more recent work. Her daughter is doing a lot of work now, and she's still out there doing her thing, and she has aged very gracefully, and she's just still has that wow factor about her. I love her in this movie, and in my brain, I was like, man, Andie MacDowell gets like the short end of the stick, right? Because Michael Keaton gets to do all the gags, and she's left, she's not aware of the clones, so she's just like the wife of the movie, as we see so many times. There's some truth to that, but, hashtag positivity podcast. I don't want to focus on the negatives. Her chemistry with Michael Keaton is incredible, and you can't credit just one person for that. It takes 2 to make it happen. Their early scenes, like before those clones, where they don't have a perfect marriage, but they have a happy one, and they are getting by, and he's overworked, but she's understanding, and that little banter they have, where she's like, well, who's going to take on the extra work now? And he's like, well, I'll give you a hint. You're sleeping with him. She goes, the video store clerk. it's so great and believable.
Very
and she
real,
maintains that throughout the movie, even as she meets some of the other Dougs unexpectedly, or, beyond her knowledge. She keeps up that chemistry. And again, this is a movie that doesn't come close to passing the Bechdel test, but Andie MacDowell doing plenty of heavy lifting and making the most of her character and her screen time. It's certainly, other people may have gotten lost in this role, but she does a lot to be present, be involved, have her own jokes, be a fully realized character. I love scenes where she stands up to Doug's crap and, isn't afraid to stick it to him. Like it's handled very, very well, I think. And Andie MacDowell is just always wonderful.
Yeah, she's great. No exception here. She starts her career, like I said, as a model, but then she has a role in Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, one of the longest, unnecessarily long film titles of all time. That's the one where Christopher Lambert played Tarzan. She's in that movie, but her voice is dubbed by Glenn Close.
Why?
Very weird. That movie is so strange. She apparently had like a southern accent when she made the movie, and like the director Hugh Hudson didn't want that. And so she's literally dubbed over in post by Glenn Close.
Where I didn't look this up. Where is she from? South Carolina, because she still has a southern accent here, but like, I almost don't notice it except for a few words. But whenever Michael Keaton does an impression of her, he does like a deep southern accent. He's like,
Yeah.
Doug.
She probably has her breakout in 89 when she does Sex, Lies, and Videotape with Steven Soderbergh. That's the one where she gets nominated for Independent Spirit Award, Golden Globe, New York Film Critics. A whole bunch of acclaim came from Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which is very, very good if you haven't seen it. It's older than it's always, because I see Soderbergh and I just think like late 90s, early 2000s for Soderbergh. And so when someone's like, oh yeah, he made that movie in 89, I'm just like, how old is this man? But you then realize that he was like 26 when they made that movie, and you're like, oh, there it is. Then obviously she goes on to have this very prolific career. Groundhog Day, obviously another big comedy staple directed by Harold Ramis. As in Four Weddings and a Funeral, which obviously is a very, very funny movie, and then obviously just has this string of very successful parts. But yeah, I like here that, she's obviously not as big of a character as Michael Keaton is, but she's a very prominent character because she's his wife. She stands up to all of his nonsense. I like that about the character a lot. When she's had enough, she leaves, and he has to make the overtures. But yeah, it's a great performance. And I'm never going to be sad when Andie MacDowell is on my screen. She's doing different commercials now because I just saw her in a commercial for something else. But it's like now, and she's got like the gray hair. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, she still got it.
That's our main cast. That's really
That's everybody.
Everybody.
A couple of other bit parts.
Let's shout out a few.
Yeah,
Eugene Levy has a small part, sort of bookending this movie.
Can I speak about this? Can I speak about this for a second?
Can I?
Like,
is it about
ahead,
how
sorry.
young he looks?
It's about how different he looks. Like,
well,
if you watch
yes.
Eugene Levy and like Schitt's Creek, or you watch Eugene Levy and even something like Armed and Dangerous, and then you see Eugene Levy here, they just don't seem like the same person.
100%.
Like,
my
it's truly, honestly strange.
My first note is, wow, young Eugene Levy is weird. And then you look it up. He's 50 years old. He's a 50-year-old man here. He was born in 46. He's already old.
That man is almost 80 now. Like, he is 78, I think.
But like, American Pie
yeah.
is 3 years later, and I feel like that's iconic Eugene Levy, and he's had that look ever since. Like, he's continued to age and get more gray, but I don't know what happened those 3 years. The eyebrows get a little bit bushier, his hair gets a little more gray, he gains a little bit of weight. I don't know. There's just a few degrees off. Like, he tweaks a little bit more.
Acting,
and then we get locked into like Eugene Levy. But he's very funny. I love his character. He's chronically late. They get a lot of good gags out of that. He's such a good reaction guy. He always has been. Just to jump ahead, whenever he like is very proud of himself for being on time. Like, you told me to be here at 8:30. If you can note the time, it's 9:15.
9:15.
And then like his reaction, his look to that is just he's so good at that. But yeah, great to see him. But I agree, Andrew, looks weird here.
It's like, and it's obviously it's the mustache, it's acting. I'm sure that's what it is. He's just acting like a sleazeball construction worker because that's what he is. And just obviously they're adapting the look. He's not wearing the glasses. Like, the glasses, I think, is what kind of is a huge part of the iconic Eugene Levy look. His hair is a little bit different.
Oh, the glasses. That's what's missing. The round glasses.
Yeah, like, if you look at his Wikipedia photo, like, that's Eugene Levy. Here, I don't know what it is, but it's anyway. He is only in a few parts of this movie, mostly as a comedic punchline for the fact that he's so late all the time. But it is still a fun little bit performance. The movie opens with him and his guys. They demoed the wrong driveway, and it's costing Michael Keaton's company money now. But yeah, I'm never going to be sad to see Eugene Levy on my screen.
I saw in the opening credits that Julie Bowen was in this movie. And I was like,
Yes.
I don't remember that. And then I finished the movie and I was like, well, where was Julie Bowen? And I had to Google it because
She plays
first off,
Brian Doyle Murray's wife. Yeah, like
she plays a role in this weird side plot that I always forget about in this movie, and I think it's so strange. But she's got a few scenes. But the thing is, kind of like talking about Eugene Levy, I can't reconcile modern, pun intended, Julie Bowen with like 90s Julie Bowen. Like, I watched Modern Family for years without knowing this was the same woman from Happy Gilmore. I don't know where the line is with her, but Modern Family Julie Bowen, or even like I watched Hubie Halloween not realizing they were reuniting Happy Gilmore. Like, I don't know what. I get it. It's not glasses with her like it was to Eugene Levy. I don't know what it is, but yeah, she has a scene like on the sailing boat, and like when I Google imaged her, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's Julie Bowen, sure. But I don't know what to tell you. I think Julie Bowen's great. She's not doing too much here, but I do genuinely like her what she shows up in. I think she's very, very funny, but. I don't know. 90s Julie Bowen, modern Julie Bowen. She might have been swapped out at some point, Andrew. I don't know what to tell you.
That's the true universe swap, is Julie Bowen switched at some point. Yeah, and just shout out that same time. She hangs out with Brian Doyle Murray, obviously one of the Murray brothers. But he's got a bit part two. Is just this. It's this sailing subplot. It's really weird.
Hang on, Andrew. When you say Murray brothers,
yes.
This is Bill Murray's brother?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I'm learning this for the first time, Andrew.
Also, Joel Murray from such things as that movie. What was it?
I don't know. I didn't know Bill Murray had famous brothers, Andrew.
They literally had a show where they all golfed together, I think. What was that movie he was in? I don't remember. He's in One Crazy Summer, which is a John Cusack comedy I remember watching, but I feel like there was a movie he was in. I can't remember what it was. But he's just there's a fourth one too, I think. Yeah, so there's four Murray brothers: Bill Murray, Brian Doyle Murray, Joel Murray, and John. John's the fourth one. But yeah, so Brian Doyle Murray just appears in a lot of those circles too. He was on variety of different things back in the early days, but then kind of just started following his brother around. He plays like a psychiatrist in Ghostbusters 2. If Bill Murray's there, Brian Doyle Murray's usually not far, unless it's directed by Wes Anderson. Anyway, just another couple of bit parts. He also plays the mayor in Groundhog Day, another thing he worked with Harold Ramis on. But yeah, it's a small thing. Two more people I want to give shout outs to, if you don't mind.
Go for it, Andrew.
First is Richard Mazer, who plays Doug's boss. He plays Del King, the owner of Del King Construction. Basically plays Doug's exasperated boss, who ends up firing him after it turns out that 3 doesn't know all the specifics of this construction job, but his job in this movie is basically to just be angry. Obviously, Richard Mazer on most people's radars for The Thing, probably. I would assume that's what most people associate him with, where he plays Clark, the dog handler. On the Thing Wikipedia page, if you go to the cast, it has Kurt Russell, left, pictured 1976, and Keith David, 2010. So it's this old 70s black and white Kurt Russell picture next to Keith David from 10 years ago. Doesn't reconcile at all. But anyway, just a fun spot there. And then I do want to shout out another alum of the show, although I think Richard Mazer is also an alum of the show. I don't remember from what, though.
We talked about The Thing, Andrew. And technically a month.
So that's why. Yes, we did. So technically we've talked about Richard Mazer. And then Harris Yulin, who plays Dr. Leeds, who is the scientist behind the cloning technology. Harris Yulin is an alum of the show as well, from a little film we covered called Ghostbusters 2, where he plays arguably one of the more memorable characters of the film. He plays Judge Stephen Wexler, who is the judge overseeing the trial where the Ghostbusters essentially get to return to the public eye. He's the one that just screams at them, tells him to shut up a lot, and then tells him he wants to have him burned at the stake. It's this very, very impassionated rant he goes on that I'm sure I talked about in the episode, but it still just sticks in my brain. And obviously he's being egged on by the slime. I realize that's the point, but it's such a scathing takedown of the Ghostbusters. I'm like, wow, you hate these guys. But then obviously he rescinds all the orders and gets him there. He tells him to save his life and everything. But just a fun performance there. So in a love of the show, only literally 1-2 scenes here. I think it's just the scene at the beginning where he talks to Doug about cloning, and then the scene where he Doug's clone the first time. Clones Clug, whatever.
Which are like back-to-back scenes. So
yeah, they're literally back-to-back. But but we'll talk about that with scenes. But just literally almost like a Richard Attenborough Jurassic Park type energy that he exudes here. Just like a very grandfatherly type, hey, I think I can help you work on your life balance by creating a clone of you. It's like, whoa, hold on, step back a second. It involves,
I think I can help you with genetic
people,
engineering.
Same thing.
That's old man in the graveyard.
Fortunately for Michael Keaton, there was no frog DNA involved. But anyway, I do want to find out Harris Yulin just passed away, literally June 10th, barely, not even 2 weeks ago at the time of recording. Age of 87, had a heart attack. So big rest in peace out to
R.I.P.
Harris, but definitely made his mark with some very fun performances over his career.
Andrew, you really got me thinking about Brian Doyle Murray. Because
Really?
I saw,
Jesus.
I saw Ann Cusack in the cast.
Yes.
I'm like, Cusack.
Yes,
I click on
relation.
John and Joan Cusack's sister. There's a third Cusack. There might even be more Cusacks for all I know, but I had no idea there was another actor in that family in the mix. She plays Noreen. She's a coworker of Doug. She goes on a date with number 2. And I've seen her even fairly recently. She had a recurring role on The Good Doctor, a show that I watched, and I had no idea that I was watching a Cusack or someone from Multiplicity in that show. So look at that.
She was in that Justin Long comedy vehicle, Accepted. I remember seeing her in that when that movie was for some reason on everybody's minds.
But, ask me about my wiener.
She was also in Nightcrawler. Had played one of the various people that the greatest actor of all time, Jake Gyllenhaal, runs into throughout that course of that film. But yeah, is a relation. Yep.
Very fun. Well, Andrew, we've done more than our due diligence going through this cast. Did I say diligence right? I'm not editing it. Let's
I don't know.
Move on to the scenes of this movie, and we're going to start with the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, kick us off. When is this movie firing on all cylinders? What is the best scene in Multiplicity?
There's a scene right at the beginning where it fades up into the opening credits, and then there's the scene right at the end where it fades to black.
Yeah,
and
you like everything in between.
Again.
Everything between those two.
That scene in between those, I think, is my favorite of this whole movie.
You know what's crazy?
I'm not gonna
you know
lie
what's
to you,
crazy?
like,
This is a 2-hour movie. Would you have guessed that without looking it up?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
It's got a strong 90 to 100 minute feel.
It does. I genuinely struggle to come up with like pointing to the one scene that I think is my favorite, but I think the thing, like, there's so many like comedic moments in between things that jump out to me. There's so many just moments throughout the film that I just love. And I think what I gotta highlight though is it's just them fixing the house at the end. Just the 4 of them. Just because that's maybe not the funniest scene in the movie by any means, but it's the scene where like all of them sort of are on the same page, possibly for the first time. So much of this movie, the characters, it's all these weird spot fixes that they don't realize that the things that he's adding are not solving the problem. And if anything, they're making the problem worse, which is where the comedy comes from. But by the end of the movie, when everything kind of explodes, his wife and the kids move out to her parents' house. He gets fired from his job. He's kind of at rock bottom because all of these attempts to quote unquote fix it have just led to more and more problems. So he finally kind of tells them, "Hey, we're gonna fix it, like for real this time." and I think it's 2 that even says about time. And so one of the biggest things that Laura had pointed out to, and I'll be talking about more scenes related to that later, but was that he hits nails in halfway, as a Holland March would say from The Nice Guys. No follow through. So he decides he's going to follow through on the biggest thing that he's never done, which is finishing their house. And so he employs all of the clones to help him do that. Does call in Eugene Levy for this. I do love this scene when Eugene Levy pulls up to the house and he just sees all 3 of the Dougs
These are the
sitting
guys.
there, and he's basically, let's get to work. Like, he just doesn't even really question it. Just like,
I love it.
you know, it just rolls with it. I always love moments like that where they just like say that, like, they see something wild and insane, and then they're just like, okay. Then they, we get a nice montage set to Stevie Ray Vaughan, which, the real Texas music legend, Stevie Ray Vaughan. But it's just a blast. And then you're watching him kind of work. You get to see Doug and 2 kind of in their element. You get to see 3 contributing in the way that he does. And then 4 just running around, trying to help and having some mishaps because of it. None of which are necessarily his fault, but just because, the way he does things. And it's just that satisfying moment where you're like, oh, they're all dialed in together for the first time, probably the whole movie. They're all on the same page. They're all working together. Because every time he adds a clone, Doug Prime is trying to use that as an excuse to kind of detach more. And that's kind of the recurring thing, is that when he brings them the first clone, the whole idea is that now he gets to kind of take time for himself, and he can't do that because now he has to handle everything at the house. Then he does 3, and then he finally wants to take time away and go from the house. And then when he does that, things fall apart. The whole point is that none of these things are actually fixing the problem. And so this is the moment where they're all on the same page. They power through together. You get some fun comedic moments here. Not going to deny that. Like I said, probably not the funniest scene in the movie, but watching the movie and just loving seeing these characters, having them all be together and on the same page. It's satisfying to see. I do love when Eugene Levy shows up, where he's like, he does have that scene you mentioned where he's like, would like you to note the time. You told me to be here at 8:30. He's like, it's 9:15. And he's like, he blames his watch again just because he has this watch set on New York time that he can't figure out how to reset.
I love that scene because he's like, he's always got to do the math. It was 5:30 in New York, so it's 2:30. Because you're expecting him to be like, yeah, my mind, I'm just on New York time. My mind is back there. But no. He bought it in New York and he can't figure out how to change the time. Like,
and he has
it
no
just
other watches
immediately
in his
takes
life.
any cool out of it.
He has no other watches in his life either, apparently. No clocks in his house, no anything. I do love right after that, he's like, hey, I'm sorry for how I spoke to you the other day, because he did fire him from a site a couple days ago, and he's like, I just want you to know that you're still the best concrete guy in the business. And he's like, really? And he goes like, no, everybody else wasn't available. And then he's like, I accept that. And then they just move forward. Like, they just, it's just good banter, good comedic energy between Eugene Levy and Michael Keaton, which, they're 2 super funny guys. I'm not shocked at all that came through. But I do love this sequence. Just, it's satisfying to watch, kind of see the, all the discombobulation throughout the film kind of finally start lining up together and getting sorted. And I like Stevie Ray Vaughan, so that's an added bonus.
Great pick, Andrew. I love how well this is seated in the movie, because you don't have Andy McDowell constantly complaining about this issue. It's never really brought up explicitly, but it's always there because you can see it. You can see in their house, there's walls that are half completed. There's construction material sitting around. There's a saw sitting in the kitchen. It's always there in the background that their house is under construction, halfway through a remodel. He's a contractor. You can assume he's doing the work himself, and it just hasn't been done. So, like, without beating you over the head with it, it's planted really well. So at the very end, where she's like, she brings it up as one of her complaints, it feels earned because it's been there, like, in the background without being super obvious. I think that was really well done. It's not something she nags about the whole movie, but it finds a way to be present nonetheless. It doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere at the end for some grand gesture he can do to make her happy. Storytelling. It's good. 4 writers. Turns out one of them at least knew what they were doing. Whoever came up with
2 teams of writers, Chris.
It's still 4 writers, Andrew. Tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, but like it's actually two writers.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I think this is a great pick, Andrew. You did say this is probably not the funniest scene in the movie, and I agree, because what I want to highlight as my favorite scene is what I would consider to be the funniest scene, certainly the most laughs per minute. It's whenever Doug Prime takes his wife out to a nice dinner because he wants to tell her that he needs to go back to work. He runs into Doug 2, that is on a date with Noreen, the coworker. And as soon as they realize the other one is there, I am like rolling with laughter. First, you have like a ton of great reactions. This movie has more double takes than I've ever seen in a film. Anytime, when Doug 2 meets Doug 3, there's a double take. He looks over at him, looks back at the TV, and then does, what? Whenever Doug 1 sees Doug 4, huge double take. He walks right past him, you hear a clash in the kitchen, and he runs back out. When Doug 1 and 2 see each other at dinner, big double takes. Anytime another one comes across another clone in an unexpected place, you get the huge double take, and it never gets old. I love the great lengths they go to trying to keep their respective partners from seeing the other one. There's a great scene in the bathroom. There's just, what am I going to go through every joke here? I love whenever the urinals next to each other and Doug Prime is trying to sneak a peek at Doug 2's penis to see if it's exactly the same, I guess. It's a great little gag. Someone walks in on, the maitre d' is obviously looking at Doug Prime very funny whenever he first gets there because it's the second time he's seen him arrive. Yeah. That's such a great setup. Like, most people could probably figure out why he's looking at him that way, but it's such a good setup because they don't reveal that second Doug until like halfway through their dinner. There's a great moment. Like I mentioned, like people that were watching Michael Keaton movies in the 80s aren't surprised that he's doing this movie. This is like classic Michael Keaton stuff. The scene where he doesn't want Andy McDowell to turn her head, so he grabs her on either side of her head, and he's like, "Oh, look at me!" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, well, how do I look?" She's like, crazy, because he has like one eye bigger than the other one. His head's all cocked weird.
Yeah.
Like he's just what he's able to pull off is absolutely incredible. I love Doug 2 is standing up to leave when he sees Doug 1, and he immediately just drops to the ground, like underneath the table. It's fantastic. I'm not gonna bore listeners by talking about every little funny gag that they do here, but it escalates to the point.
Well,
of
we
like,
will actually. So strap
Okay.
in. This is going to be 3 more hours. No.
when Doug 2 is
But,
trying to sneak out and he puts his hand on someone else's table because he's crouched down, he puts his hand right in their salad, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I'll just toss that a little bit," and keeps going. Like he literally says, "I'll just toss it." He pulls off a tablecloth. Like it's just very great. You got everything. You got slapstick. You got witty banter. You've got everything. It's wonderful. Funniest scene in the movie for sure. So that's why I want to highlight.
Oh
it as my
yeah,
favorite.
absolutely. I think I love when the maitre d' walks in and he just shoves Doug's head in the sink, like he's just in the bathroom, and just literally like, just yeah, like you said, the comedic lengths they have to go to make sure that nobody sees the two of them, and just man, I just gotta point out that obviously I know this is like extensive use of doubles. Obviously they're cutting stuff together here, but like it looks pretty good for like all
the
of
best
stuff that
special
they're
effect
doing.
shot in the movie is in the scene because
Is it the one where they're both standing in the mirror?
yes, it's so good.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, so I think everyone knows the most classic way to have the same actor play 2 roles. It's where like one occupies the left side of the screen, one occupies the right. It's a static shot, and you just film it twice and splice it together line. Like everyone knows that trick. So anytime you see a movie where one actor's playing multiple characters, they always have certain shots to highlight. Like, well, you don't know how we did this shot. Like, we covered Sinners on our Best of the Best, and the very first time you see 2 Michael B. Jordans, the camera is panning around them, and one of them passes something to the other one. Like, they are really trying to flex their muscles there. So this movie there's, like you said, there's plenty of doubles, plenty of split screen. There's plenty of double and triple exposure. Like sometimes the lighting looks off because they've shot over the same piece of film multiple times to get the effect. They use a lot of green screen, tons of different effects. Sometimes it looks a little janky, but I think it always pulls it off. But there are times when I can't wrap my head around how they do it. And the scene in the bathroom, we have Doug 1 standing next to Doug 2, but also in frame is the mirror with both of their reflections. So from right to left, it's Doug 1, Doug 2, reflection of Doug 1, reflection of Doug 2, as if it's 4 people standing next to each other. I don't know how they pull it off. It doesn't look janky, and that shot is just there to show off that they're doing something cool. Like otherwise, you wouldn't make it a point to show both of their reflections. But it's the fact that it's one actor appearing 4 times on screen as 2 different characters. It's fantastic. It's so good.
I literally have it freeze framed on my computer right now to look at it, and it's truly insane. Like, and I think, like, even like, and it's like I have no idea. Like, did you film them separately and then literally cut it into 4 and put it all together to do that so that you could cut around it and have the 2? Because the thing is, like, it doesn't. So the one thing I will say for the scene is it looks like the Keaton. So 2 on the real 2, not the reflection of 2. You don't see his face, but you see like outlines of his face. So I'm pretty sure it also has to be Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's them and it's their reflection. I think that's real, and I think they're literally just cutting them up to splice them between each other to create the sequence there. And it's, like you said, it looks perfect. Like, there's a couple of moments where you can tell that, like, okay, we're using screens, we're going back over some, like, this scene in particular, like, and so, I mean, if you're going to have a shot where it looks flawless, this is definitely the one to do it with.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just truly, honestly, it's just amazing. Like, it's great. And just 10 out of 10. Props to the director, props to the editor. I do want to shout out, who did edit this? Doesn't say. Craig Herring and Pembroke J. Herring. That is the name. What else has this person done? Oh, they did Johnny Dangerously and Vacation, and so that's why they end up in that. But then I do want to shout out, Laszlo Kovacs is the cinematographer of this movie, which obviously when you're shooting things like this, you obviously have to be very, very careful. You have to have a lot of attention to detail. Laszlo was, rest in peace, he died about 20 years ago, I think, 2007. But he was a legendary cinematographer, shot things like Easy Rider, The King of Marvin Gardens, lots of classic films with Jack Nicholson, Bob Rafelson, a bunch of people in that era. Is also the cinematographer of the original Ghostbusters. Which I think that is an underrated aspect of Ghostbusters that people don't talk about. I think that movie is shot extremely well, which I talk about sense of scale sometimes when I talk about the newer Ghostbusters movies. Laszlo was very, very good at creating that sense of scale with that movie. And then he comes in and he obviously does Multiplicity, which obviously doesn't have necessarily the technical need to do something like Ghostbusters, but when you're working with something like this that requires a fine attention to detail to make sure that you've got all the footage you need to cut everything together the way you do, he's definitely somebody that you would want doing that. And obviously, Harold Ramis worked with him on Ghostbusters, obviously would have had some kind of relationship there, so it's very, very... it's obviously, that's a huge part of this. So shout out to, obviously, Harold Ramis as the director, but obviously the editors and the cinematographer are all part of making this come together the way that it does.
Harold Ramis, as talented as he is, he can probably say, this is what I want to be in the shot, but I would doubt he alone had the technical know-how to know where all you need cameras, how many passes, etc. So definitely have to have a team coming together to make that happen. So great shout out. Probably my other favorite special effects shot, because I don't know exactly how they do it, is after his wife has left, he realizes that number 4 knows something, that she talked to him before he left.
This out, yeah.
And so they're sitting at the table together, and to get him to talk, he's pouring him soda. So all in one frame, you see it's 2 Michael Keatons, not a double. Michael Keaton or Doug Prime pours a 2-liter of Coke into a glass held by number 4, who then drinks the soda that was just poured in his glass. I know how you do that today. I don't know how you do that in 1996. It's very impressive.
Yeah, like you talk about the scene in Sinners where the first sequence is them panning around and handing stuff to each other, and this is a sequence where like literally he's pouring soda for Michael Keaton is pouring soda into a glass held by other Michael Keaton.
Yeah, a clear
like,
glass, a glass,
a clear glass.
Like,
no less.
Yeah,
Now,
it's very impressive.
It is actually I have the scene playing right now. I'm double checking something real quick. All right. So I don't think Michael Keaton is not holding the glass when he pours it, and I think that's the.
Well, he does it twice. There's two pours. Is he not pouring it either time? Is he not holding it either time?
I don't think he's Let's see. Oh, he is. He's holding it the first time. I take it back. So he is holding it the first time. So that is and man, he drinks that Coke.
He wears that Coke. Yeah,
he just literally. So even then, yeah, you talk about like obviously they're not doing the panning around like they were in Sinners or anything like that, but being able to do a sequence like that where they're clearly interacting with each other in a physical space, and it comes off really well. Like you said, this is one of the scenes. The only scene, like a scene where like I think it maybe does show through a little bit, is that scene where the four of them are together
on the couch
after Laura has left on the couch. Like,
because
you've got one standing behind the couch, and then you've got the other three sitting on the couch. That's definitely one where I think it shows through a little bit more.
Yeah.
But even then, it still doesn't look bad. Like it's there's just a little bit of an uncanny valley there, where like one of them is just lit a little bit differently because like they're trying to put him in the forefront, but like it does kind of make him stand out a little bit. Four could be stunt doubles for half this movie, and you wouldn't know.
He's wearing those goggles all the time.
He's always wearing goggles or something on top of his head, which I'm sure was a deliberate thing specifically for that reason. So that like if Four was in the background or something, he could clearly just be played by like a stunt double or something. But like
I don't know,
on the
like
couch, no less.
We recognize actors, especially Michael Keaton, so much more than you might realize. Because there's a scene at the end of the movie where 2, 3, and 4 are about to drive away, and Doug Prime is standing. And there's a shot where Doug is talking to them. They're all in the convertible looking up at him. So it's the back of all their heads. And you can tell it's, I want to say stunt doubles. You can tell it's doubles. You can tell it's not Michael Keaton. Just from the back of his head. The hair just isn't quite right. Like, you can spot that stuff if you're looking for it. So, I think you're right about number 4, wearing goggles and the ski hat is probably not always him. But I also think when you're looking for it, the doubles are easier to pick up on. It's just pretty easy to pick up on. So the fact that so much of the stuff looks so good in motion is, it's quite impressive.
It's very, very well done. So like I say, shout out to everybody. Man, this movie is just so good. We truly could just sit here talking about this movie forever, because this is just...
And that's what we're going to do, Andrew.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the beginning. We're just going to let the movie play, and you're just going to get our live commentary.
The opening credits, everyone's name shows up multiple times. How fun is that? The name of the movie shows up a bunch of times. Is very cool. The name of the place that does the cloning is the Gemini Institute. A little fun bookend to our clone month, which started with Gemini Man. And Andrew, Gemini, the sign of the astrological twins, is association with doubles, therefore with clones. You pitched this month, Clone Month. I think I'm a clone now. And it was so smart of you to plan this month to be in June, which is primarily the astrological sign of the Gemini. So kudos to you for thoughtfully planning the placement of this month's theme, Andrew. Kudos.
Yeah. Knew it the whole time.
So humble.
This was just, I'm not going to lie. This was like 40% truly like, how can we talk about multiplicity?
No one is surprised. Everyone knows that, Andrew. Whenever we announce it in the Discord, people are like, okay, we're finally talking. Yeah, it's very funny.
I think my friend Keith literally messaged me and was like, oh, you found an excuse to talk about multiplicity. And I was like, you guessed it. It's just one of those things where I'm like, the movie is just so funny. I love that scene after the scene with Doug Prime and 4 kind of talking, because I actually love this scene beyond just the effects reason. I love that 4 is the one who helps Doug Prime figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
Because one, it speaks again to how this movie is treats FOUR, in that again, this could have been an easy thing, but it actually makes FOUR integral to Doug Prime figuring out kind of what he needs to do and what he actually needs to do to fix himself. And I think that is just very cool of the movie to do. But I do. It's obviously it's obviously just playing on like the old cop negotiation tactics. But like, it does remind me a little bit of The Naked Gun, where he's just like, maybe this will change your mind, and he pours him coke in a class, and I'm yep, that's the type of movie this is. But it's just very fun. This movie's just great.
There's so we've talked about it before. Sometimes I struggle with covering comedies because, like, I want to talk about the positives, but so much of it is just like jokes. I don't know how fun it is for me to just explain jokes over and over again, but a lot of it in this movie is just Michael Keaton isms, and it's visual stuff, it's physical stuff. Like, I love whenever he first brings home 2. And they're planning on how to divide up their work and how they're going to kick ass on their job. And they start hyping each other up because we're going to bring Ted down. We're going to bring Ted down. We're going to bring him down. Like, and I'm doing it here at the microphone. But the way, like, he bobs his head like he's one of those birds that perpetually drinks water. Like, the way he just, physically moves. Yeah, it's so funny. The chest bump is obviously kind of showing off, the special effects again, because it's Michael Keaton chest bumping himself. But his physical comedy is just absolutely incredible, and it's not like Jim Carrey where he's a cartoon character, it's crazy over the top, but it is specific. I don't know exactly. It's somewhere between like a Jim Carrey and a more reserved physical comedian, but like, I think Michael Keaton's physical work is underrated. Like, people talk about his banter, his quick wit, his vocal and that's all great. But even something like Batman, like, you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. Like, the man knows how to move on screen.
There's a line from Michael Keaton to Jim Carrey that probably has a couple of other people in between. Yeah. But I think there's definitely, like, you look at things like Beetlejuice and even Night Shift, like, there's proto Jim Carrey-isms. Like, obviously they're Michael Keaton-isms, but like, I'm basically more point saying that like there is influence of Michael Keaton within Jim Carrey. Maybe not, I don't know if he's ever said that, but just to me, it's very obvious when you watch things like Beetlejuice that, when you see something like Beetlejuice and then you watch Ace Ventura, that like, there's a line between that type of performance. Not that Michael Keaton invented physical comedy, nor did Jim Carrey, but just that there's a line there probably that you could draw that, like I said, probably has a couple of other people in between. But like, The Mask is basically Beetlejuice, just with much more insane energy. Like, it's just like the energy is just exponentially higher, but it's the same idea. It's the same concept basically. But and especially something like that where you get to play the duality of it, where like the other side is Jim Carrey having to be normal, and then he has to save the Jim Carreyisms for being The Mask. But but Michael, the physical comedy Michael, and like, you can find clips of Michael Keaton doing stand-up. Like, it's wild. Like, he used to do that sort of stuff, and he just doesn't anymore. And I don't think he has any desire to do that. I think he always kind of just wanted to do acting, and he just kind of found that like he could do out and do comedy, and the stuff he's done is funny. Like, you can find clips of it on YouTube. Just do like Michael Keaton stand-up. It's there. And just, I don't think he has any desire to do it because he just does his comedy bits anytime he does media tours at this point. But I found this whole compilation that's just Michael Keaton. It says Michael Keaton lies, and it's just him telling nonsense stories and media tours, and then just immediately going nope, and then telling the truth. But one of my favorite things he ever did is he was talking about, somebody asked how he prepares for roles. I think they were talking about Spider-Man. They're like, how do you prepare for a role like Spider-Man? He's like, I went and killed a bunch of teenagers. And, but what he was talking about, but I don't think he said that, but like, he talked about doing Pacific Heights. They were like, how do you prepare for movies? And he's like, I just kind of look to the performance, and then I kind of think, what can I do to kind of learn about that? And I think maybe he was talking about like Spotlight. He actually like went to the Boston Globe, and he's like, and for Pacific Heights, I went and I killed a guy. And Gio figured out how that felt. But And so his sense of humor, just in general, is something that, I mean, I'm sure that if you watched Michael Keaton stand up, you would just be like, oh, Andrew's just a Michael Keaton comedic impression stacked in a trench coat calling himself a human being. But so don't watch them, folks. I need some mystery of myself to remain. But
Hey, you have other references too, Andrew.
yes, I do. But no, I was like, when I start, like, when I started dating Liz, I was like, I better not show her all these things I like, or she's just gonna know wholesale where I ripped everything off from. She's like, it's like I'm never gonna be able to live that down. But it's he's
She
just
just
so
starts
funny.
seeing you as like Matrix code. She just sees the algorithm.
Yeah, like I just
of-
start fading away. Like you're just like, and that's from Multiplicity, and this is from Night Shift, and that's from Batman, and that's from this, and that's from over here. Like I'll just be like, oh god, this is terrible. But we could talk about this movie forever. I just
we
this
are
movie is
going
great.
to. I love.
We are.
I talked about how I love how Andy McDowell isn't scared to like stand up to him like as a character, because there's moments, you're watching a movie from the 90s and it's like I think a good example is like whenever he's getting overwhelmed. Now that he has more time at home, he's getting overwhelmed with the stuff he has to do around the house for his kids. So he gets his daughter ready to go down to ballet class to get the pictures done. And she's like, oh, didn't you get the call? Pictures are tomorrow. And he's like, that's funny, but you need to get a photographer down here like right now. And like there's nothing wrong with that scene, but you start getting this certain kind of energy from him. And it's almost immediately followed up by him taking his wife out to dinner and saying like, 'cause, he freed her up to get her own job. And he's saying, this isn't working. This whole new dynamic's not working. You're just so much better. You're a natural caregiver. You're better at the stuff around the house. I got to get back to work. And he ends up by saying, I got to go back to work. And that's it. Like, that's the way it's going to be. And she just says, no, that's not it. And she's like, I'm sure you had a hard month. I feel for you. I've been doing that for 10 years. And you can't just say, like, put your foot down and change everything back. It's fantastic because, again, you've got a fully realized character in Anna McDowell as his wife. And you have this realistic sort of wedge forming in their relationship that will be resolved at the end. Like, it's all handled very well. And it again, I said it when we're talking about her performance, but it'd be so easy for this character to truly be nothing and just convenient for the plot, but they give her enough agency and motivation that it feels so much more authentic. And to jump back to the end, we talked about, Michael Keaton. You see like 4 different distinct characters. We've talked a lot about how funny he is, how physical he is, but he's also an incredible actor, just period, beyond comedy.
Yes.
They have great chemistry.
Turns out.
But at the end, whenever he brings her back, he shows her the house that's been remodeled. And he apologizes, says he's more present. There's this moment where it's not incredible writing that makes the scene work. It is 100% his performance. He just looks at her and says, I love you so much. I just really love you. And he has tears in his eyes. Like he's being truly vulnerable, and he is saying so much there. He's saying, like, I'm scared I almost lost you. I'll never let this happen again. I'm going to devote more time to our relationship. Like, he's saying all these things, but the words are just, I love you so much. I just really love you. Like, in a lesser performance in someone else, that could have been absolutely nothing. But when Michael Keaton is on the verge of tears saying that to Andy McDowell, it's an incredible form. Like, it's so good. And it's a saying that the guy that's been crushing this comedy for the past 2 hours of this movie is able to pull a scene off like that at the very end of it. And it's just a reminder that this is a 5-tool player we have here.
Yeah, it's that last scene you're talking about is just really, really good. And it just feels like I'm calling myself out, because even though it's a serious conversation, he still works in these like sardonic, like when he talks about opening, like it's in the middle of this serious moment of trying to reconcile with his wife, and he talks about how his contracting business is going to start small with like birdhouses and mailboxes, which is an
Yes.
inherently silly thing to say. Just like, because I have the same thing. I'll be in the middle of this like serious conversation, and I'll just like, nope, just stop, don't do it, man. Like, just keep it on task. Even when I'm at work, I'll just be like, just something sneaks in, and I'm just like, dang it, stop it.
Or when he pulls up, she's at her parents' house, and he pulls up to try to get her to go look at the house. He's like, I'm just gonna offer. If you want to come look at the house, that's great, but I'm not gonna beg you. I'm not gonna stand here in front of all these neighbors and beg you to come back. All right, if you want to come back, that's great. I'm not gonna beg. And like as soon as she opens her mouth to talk, he drops to his knees and wraps his arms around her and says, "Please come back."
Yeah, she puts on a whole scene. Yeah, it's great. This movie is just, it's so good, and the chemistry between the characters is true too. Like, I also, speaking just to, it's an underrated part of it. Like, people don't talk about the chemistry of the characters, just talking about all the Michael Keatons, that it kind of gets lost that there's this other aspect to it, and it is just great. It's wonderful.
I believe you have told me to watch Clean and Sober, which I have bought. I've not watched, but a dramatic performance of his from around this era.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get on that. And you, Andrew, need to watch My Life, which I think is like 95 or 94, somewhere in this time. And then we can both watch Michael Keaton performances and cry.
I don't know that I'm physically capable.
But he's so good.
I have no doubt that he is so good in it, but that movie is probably going to emotionally destroy me. But thing is with Michael Keaton, if you have not watched Night Shift, Night Shift is not going to be difficult to watch. Night Shift does not,
I didn't
require that. But I do want to talk about the ending just a little bit, where I think it's a good spot to kind of end on. But just like they reconcile.
You keep trying to end the show, Andrew. We have 3 more hours. I don't know
3 more hours. I know
what you don't understand about this.
But he reconciles with his wife, and they all move back into the house, and then he kind of sets the clones on their way. And they kind of have this conversation, the same conversation guys always have to each other. And the 3 of them, he looks at them and he's like, "You guys gonna be okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, I think we're gonna be fine." And then they look at him and they're like, "You gonna be okay?" And he's like, does the guy answer, "Yeah, I'm gonna be fine." 'Cause, we're always gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And it's a nice moment, because obviously Keaton, Doug Prime is, finally in control of his life, and he kind of knows where he's going next for possibly the first time in a long time. And you get a brief little comedic moment where the clones, what is his wife's name? I keep forgetting. Laura. She actually sees the 3 clones as they drive away, and 3 looks over and is like, "Oh God," and like sinks down in the car and like tries to hide. And then I love the moment the movie ends on, where it flashes to what the clones are doing, because it basically cuts to them in Miami, where they have opened up 3 Guys from Nowhere Pizza and Burgers. Which is, if I could find an actual shirt that had that logo on it, I would
that'd be
100%
so
buy it.
good.
But it's great, because I love this sequence. Obviously, 2 runs the business, gets to meet all sorts of women and everything, being on the Miami beach. He's having an absolute blast doing it. 3 gets to bake all the pizzas. He's having a blast in the kitchen. He says they can't get enough of his pepperoni. And then obviously it's a gag, but I love the bit with 4, where they're just like, and 3 is even saying, he's like, "You'd be the most proud of 4. He's working 2 jobs. He says in the morning he delivers newspapers, and then in the rest of the day he delivers pizzas for us." And then it ends the movie with him going, "Here's your pizza," and he throws this pizza at a house like Frisbee style, like it's a newspaper. And that's the last closing scene of the movie. And it is, and then it closes with this ska-ish cover of "A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You," which is a Monkees song. And just 10 out of 10, no notes.
It's nice. It's a silly 90s comedy thing, because it's like, well, hey, they don't have social security numbers. They all look alike. Are people going to ask questions? How does this technology even exist in this world? I don't even know if he paid for this service, because there's a moment where it's like, well, this sounds, how much would this even be? It sounds expensive.
Just ask for like a simple basic package. Basic clone package.
And then it just jumps to him to getting the procedure done. And like, I felt like the subtext was like, hey, I've only done this on one human myself. I'm looking for people to experiment on and make sure it works, so I'm going to do it for free. But they never explicitly say that. And then whenever 2 gets 4 made, they're like, yeah, the doctor was excited to try this and see how it came out. And he gave us a great deal on them. And it's like, well, are they paying for these clones? I don't know. But like, none of that stuff matters. None of that matters. And I want to acknowledge that this is pretty much what I think of cloning, the instantaneous thing.
Well, he says, he describes it as like a 2-hour process. That's what he says. He says it's just like literally they take the sample, they take the information, they literally says 2 hours, and then the clone remembers everything up to the moment of cloning, basically.
But they don't grow primitive bodies all the science stuff we've seen.
It's almost like they 3D print the body, like the body just like forms. It's wild. Like it's pretty nuts. So yeah, they breeze right past the science of the cloning in this one to just move to the setup, which I'm fine with. I don't need you to tell me how you cloned Michael Keaton.
All right, let me knock out a few of these notes, and then maybe we can actually wrap this up in
no rush.
2 more hours. So another great scene is also a mirror scene. It's whenever 2, 3, and 4 are all shaving in the mirror. Well, 2 and 3 are shaving, and 4 is just like rubbing shaving cream on his head. But again, you have 3 Michael Keatons lined up against 3 of their reflections. They're overlapping each other with their motions. Very good shot there that I like. And don't quite know how they did it, but that's okay. That's part of the magic. And I love just this Michael Keaton's delivery and dialogue, how he makes everything work. There's so many great sitcom-esque moments. And we talked about the restaurant scene. There's a scene where like he shows up to work, but 2 was already there and he's in a meeting. And the lady at the front desk is like, aren't you in the meeting? And weren't you wearing a different shirt? And he's got to go through this whole convoluted... Yeah, well, I spilled coffee on it, so I got to my truck. That's why I was out there. But next time you'll see me, I'll be coming out of the meeting in my original shirt. It should be dried up. It's a real super complicated, convoluted excuse that doesn't make any sense. But I love my favorite version of that. Maybe is whenever number 1 sneaks home from after the Lakers game. He's climbing into bed and doesn't realize that 2 is, or it's 3. I guess 3 is in bed. And he climbs into bed, and 3 jumps up and screams. And so his wife wakes up. And he goes, "Oh, what's wrong?" He goes, "Oh, sorry, I had a bad dream." "Well, what was it?" "What was what?" "What was your dream?" "Oh, I don't know. I was sleeping." It's like...
That's a good one.
I don't know. I was sleeping. It's
I don't know. I was sleeping.
So funny. So funny. This is a hilarious movie. It's a movie that, like, it's not perfect, but also it's 10 out of 10, one of my favorite comedies. You know what I mean? It's maybe more than some of its parts. I don't know exactly what it is, but, like, I can recognize there's maybe faults. I can understand if someone else doesn't love it, but it's everything. I love it. It's great.
I also love that Doug Prime just keeps looking at the clones and doing, like, the ultimate dad joke of just like, hey, you're 2 good-looking guys. And then at the end with the 3 of them, he does sit, he's like, hey, you're 3 good-looking guys. And then I like that the last time he says it, the 3 of them actually kind of go, like, they take it, like, to heart that time. Yeah. Like, one looks in the mirror, the other one's just, like, really chuffed with himself. And so it's just another fun gag throughout the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a great movie. I'm glad we did Clone Month just so we could talk about this. Totally worth it. I mean, yeah, it's been a fun month, but Multiplicity, man, if you're somehow listening to this episode still at this point and you have not seen this movie, you gotta check it out. It's so funny. That's a wrap on Clone Month, Andrew. That was a blast, and I can't believe after years of talking about it, we finally got to actually cover Multiplicity on this show. And we go watch the movie again just for the hell of it, because why not? Very excited to announce our next month's theme. Next month's theme. THS is it's a weird. The theme for next month. I'm excited to say what it is. We are revisiting a category that we have visited before. We're actually very familiar with. It used to be like the entire basis for this podcast. If you ever wondered about our podcast art, we are returning to Comic Book Month for I think the second time since we changed formats. But again, the first 59 episodes of this podcast were all about comic book movies. And since we changed up the format, there's been a few comic book movies that were released that didn't have a great reception. So we're going to jump in and cover a few of those. If you want to know exactly what that lineup looks like, hop into our Discord if you haven't done so already. I mean, what are you waiting for? It's a free app on your phone. Come and join the community, talk about nerdy stuff, see what we have coming up, share your positive thoughts ahead of time. We'll read it on the episode. Join us in that Discord to see the full lineup for Comic Book Month. There's actually 5 weeks in July, so we have 5 movies coming your way of recent comic book adaptations. Andrew, how challenging of a month do we have ahead? What do you think?
That's all I have to say.
Let the record show that Andrew shrugged.
So we'll say these are all going to be more recent.
Yeah.
None of these are like, we're not going back to like previous anything. These will all be within the last 3 or 4
I think they're
years.
all since we changed. Well, maybe one of them's from before.
Anyway, like I said, all of them are going to be within the last couple of years. So these will be all more. These will all be more recent installments. So you probably can guess some of them before we even tell you what they are. But it'll be interesting. Some of these I enjoyed quite a bit and was a little surprised at the reception. Some of them I wasn't surprised, but we're going to find the good stuff.
I've seen 3 out of 5, and I will say the other 2. Well, I'll say one of these lists I probably would have never got around to watching if it weren't for the fact that we're getting covered on this podcast. So we'll see how that goes. Again, check out that lineup by joining our Discord. Link in the show notes. It's free. Come and join us. What are you waiting for? And come back next week for the kickoff of the return of Comic Book Month. And until then, remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. You can check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. And check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we're going to grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Right, Thunder Force on Netflix and Melissa McCarthy. Like, I googled her real quick. I did a quick Google to see if I could find a budget on that.